were shot and killed. Several more were injured, along with 2 civilians, as they sought to protect a peaceful protest in Dallas, Texas. Our thoughts and our prayers and condolences go out to the families of those who have lost loved ones. The Department of Justice, including the FBI, ATF, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the U.S. Attorney's Office on the scene, is working closely with our state and local counterparts, and we intend to provide any assistance that we can to investigate this attack and also to help heal a community that has been severely shaken and deeply scarred by an unfathomable tragedy. This is an unfolding situation. We'll be providing additional information when it is available and appropriate. But more so, this has been a week of profound grief and heartbreaking loss. The peaceful protest that was planned in Dallas last night was organized in response to the tragic deaths of Alton Sterling in Louisiana and Philando Castile in Minnesota. Now, we've opened a civil rights investigation in Louisiana, and we're providing assistance to local authorities in Minnesota who are leading the investigation there. And today, we are feeling the devastating loss of Dallas area Rapid Transit Officer Brent Thompson and 4 other fallen officers whose names remain unreleased as we await notification to all of the families. Now, after the events of this week, Americans across our country are feeling a sense of helplessness, of uncertainty, and of fear. And these feelings are understandable and they are justified. But the answer must not be violence. The answer is never violence. Rather, the answer, our answer, all our answer, must be action. Calm, peaceful, collaborative, and determined action. We must continue working to build trust between communities and law enforcement. We must continue working to guarantee every person in this country equal justice under the law. And we must take a hard look at the ease with which wrongdoers can get their hands on deadly weapons and the frequency with which they use them. And we must reflect on the kind of country that we want to build and the kind of society that we are choosing to pass on to our children. And above all, we must reject the easy impulses of bitterness and rancor and embrace the difficult work, but the important work, the vital work of finding a path forward together. And above everything, we must remind ourselves that we're all Americans, and that as Americans, we share not just a common land, but a common life, not just common goals, but a common heart and soul. And those we've lost this week have come from different backgrounds, different neighborhoods, but today they're mourned by officers, by residents, by family and friends, by men and women and children who loved them, who needed them, and who will miss them always. They are mourned by all of us. To the families of all who've lost their lives in this series of tragedies, we share your pain and your loss. To our brothers and sisters who wear the badge, I want you to know that I am deeply grateful for the difficult and dangerous work that you do every day to keep our streets safe and our nation secure. Our hearts are broken by this loss, and the Department of Justice will do all that we can to support you in the days ahead. And to those who seek to improve our country through peaceful protest and protected speech, I want you to know that your voice is important. Do not be discouraged by those who would use your lawful actions as a cover for their heinous violence. We will continue to safeguard your constitutional rights and to work with you in the difficult mission of building a better nation and a brighter future. And to all Americans, I ask you, I implore you, do not let this week precipitate a new normal in this country. I ask you to turn to each other, not against each other, as we move forward. Let us support one another. Let us help heal one another. And I urge you to remember, today and every day, that we are one nation, we are one people, and we stand together. May God bless the families and the loved ones of all who were taken from us this week, and comfort their grief with his everlasting grace. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
All right, now just be honest with you, I didn't have too much of a problem with the speech she gave, particularly since she called for some type of definitive action, okay, but she didn't preference it by saying action for or against whom. So I'm going to be even-handed on this and say that legislative action is what she's talking about, and also action as far as training, etc., dealing with police. As far as the community outreach, that's a two-way street. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't believe we had that big of a problem here in Dallas. And I was discussing this with my wife, and I was trying to recall when we had a shooting in the nature of the shootings in Louisiana and Minnesota. And honestly, in Dallas, I can't actually recall one. The last one that I recall in our area occurred in Arlington, where a 20-year-old football player who was drugged up was in a car dealership, and he was breaking windshields, etc., etc., etc. And a, I guess you want to call him rookie cop, came in and shot him. Now the kid was unarmed, but he was, obviously causing a tremendous amount of damage. Anyway, the Arlington police took immediate action, and they immediately fired the guy. Now, honestly, I know that the DA was looking at the guy for charges, but I don't know where that went, and I suspect that they didn't file any. Otherwise, I probably would have made a video on it, but I can't be for sure. Prior to that, I absolutely cannot recall a Dallas or even a Texas police officer story about a bad shooting. Now, that's not to say that there haven't been any, but there haven't been any publicized stories about them, and I haven't heard of any for my sources, both in East Texas, Central Texas, and North Texas. So I'm going to preference my statement that we don't have as large a problem as, again, Louisiana and Minnesota, and obviously California and elsewhere. But I could be wrong, so I'm just putting that out there. Now, on to Fox. It is so goddamn difficult to watch Fox because they spin so damn hard that it makes me believe, and I think I had done a video on it before, I believe that Fox really wants to start a race war. Okay, they turn around and put out these half-truths or embellished facts that make people think that, the sky is yellow by the time they get through. Now, I'm going to play the segment of the people that are going to comment on Lynch's speech, and you're going to have two ladies. One of them's Julie Roginski. The other lady, you'll get her name. They'll call her first name. I don't know what her last name is. And then you're going to get this super coon, David Clark wannabe, and it just so happens his first name is David. This guy is a total asshole. But anyway, let me play this clip so you can see what I'm saying.
Attorney General. The Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, speaking. We wanted to pause just for a second there because we could hear questions being asked. We were not sure because we didn't know, so obviously there will be no questions asked, but we wanted just to wait to see. Rachel, I want to come to you on this. There were certain things that needed to be said. That was very moving from Loretta Lynch. Did you hear what you wanted to hear?
No, I didn't. I felt like she was minimizing this. The roots of the Black Lives Movement has always been, beginning in Ferguson, violent roots. I mean, the guy...
See, now that's a bunch of bullshit. See, and that's what all these people from Fox and these right-wingers always want to push. The Black Lives Matter was not founded through violence. Just because a bunch of people, which just now happened, in this case, want to hijack something that's legitimate, that's peaceful, and then you get a bunch of people that start jumping up and down and doing damage, destruction, etc., and then the mob mentality takes over and it just happens to flow through, that doesn't mean that that's what Black Lives Matter was looking to do. As a matter of fact, it was exactly the opposite. They were looking for justice. And these people always want to hijack the Black Lives Matter movement and say that it's something that it's not. It is not a terrorist organization. It does not profess violence. It's peaceful. It just wants justice as far as law enforcement and the criminal justice system is concerned. And this bitch has got the nerve to try to hijack the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, for her own, I guess Fox's own reasoning. I mean, every show that comes on Fox, not one of them has anything decent to say about Black Lives Matter. Now, Julie Roginski is going to push back on her, but then you're going to have that coon, David, whatever the hell his last name is, he's going to try to push back and say the same thing. All right, let me let her finish her statement.
As David Webb said, who just got up to
Jeff Hood.
Jeff Hood on behalf.
Jeff Hood is not part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Read his tweets. He's using religious things that sound almost apocalyptic. They're full of rage. This is a way to minimize what's really happening. The only people who can stop this kind of violent movement that is affecting and killing cops is Loretta Lynch, is Obama, is Hillary, who just this week was tweeting and legitimizing Black Lives Movement. This is a serious thing, and the only people who can stop it are these leaders, and they're not doing their job. I frankly, I thought that was really underwhelming.
You know, Julie, I want to come to you on this point because in balance, there are members in Chicago and other areas around the country from Black Lives Matter who have come out and condemned what happened overnight and have said that this is not what they represent. They represent dignity, so on and so forth. We saw Hillary Clinton this time yesterday, I believe it was.
Let me stop it there. See, and exactly, the Black Lives Matter movement came out and basically they condemned this. So if you're for violence, why are you condemning violence? It's a bunch of bullshit, and that broad doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. But I guess they're all in a script. They're all in a script, following a Fox script. So you basically, know what's going on as far as they're concerned. Let her get to Julie Roginski.
America woke up to yet another tragedy of life cut down too soon. Black Lives Matter. She's hashtagging the things that are going on. So, I mean, there is legitimization, as Rachel and David have pointed out, at a very high level of this movement. But at the same time, the movement says they're not of what we saw overnight.
And they're not. Look, how many peaceful protests have we seen over the last few days all across the country, including this one, until some maniac came out and did what he did? The reality is that these cops were...
Or plural. We don't know.
Plural maniacs. These police...
We don't.
Yeah, we do know. It was one person. They're not going to find a second person. They know it's one person, but as usual, Fox wants to embellish by indicating that there was more than one person. It was one guy, okay? One guy. His name was Micah Xavier Johnson. He was a veteran, okay? One guy. And the three people that they keep repeating are being questioned, that's a lie too. There was two brothers that were walking in the protest movement. One of them was carrying an AR-15. When the shooting started, he and his brother started running just like everybody else. The cops happened to see them. They snatched them up, okay? They released them about 5 hours ago. And guess what? They were interviewed on Fox regular TV, and they were talking about the fact that they had nothing to do with it. Their pictures had been taken, they had been identified, and they were already getting death threats. And they had nothing whatsoever to do with it. The cops released them. Now, the third person is a woman, and there's been no information whatsoever regarding her, but I'm willing to bet you that she's going to be released as well. Thank God that her picture and name haven't been released, otherwise she'd probably be getting death threats too.
officers were protecting a peaceful protest and they were gunned down for that reason. I was down in Union Square yesterday. I saw a peaceful protest take
Fifth
place.
Avenue here in New York.
You cannot minimize what happened in Dallas by any stretch of the imagination, but no more can you minimize what the Black Lives Matter movement stands for,
Right.
which is complete policing.
Real quickly, I want to get you in here, David.
Okay, I was there when this farce started, this violent farce in Ferguson, following the lie about Michael Brown and
That wasn't a lie, you prick. You can't prove that his hands weren't up, and that's what the final disposition was. That's why no charges. They can't figure it out either way, and then the asshole DA decides that he wasn't going to press any charges. So you can stop with that bullshit right now. And then the Justice Department came in and said that the black residents of Ferguson were being victimized by the mayor and the politicians that were running the local government, and they consented finally to a desist order because they were physically, economically raping the black residents of that town. So I don't want to hear your bullshit.
up don't shoot. I was there, Julie. I was there in the beginning in August 2014 and after that. This has roots in violence. And by the way, even the DNC formally invited Black Lives Matter to host a presidential town hall.
What's wrong with
All
that?
these major candidates.
Exactly. What's wrong with that? They wanted the candidates to come out so that they could voice their issues and ask the candidates who were asking for their votes. They wanted to ask the candidates what their solutions were going to be. So you're a guy. Let me stop, because this guy, he pisses me off almost as much as David Clark.
Have been in bed with a violent basis,
That's not
and what they do is they minimize the people who are peaceful, who have real issues that we do need to discuss in this
Can I
country.
just say that she said we need to come together as Americans, but the Black Lives Matters means it excluded people.
All right, we're going to...
The Black Lives Matter movement doesn't exclude people. There are white people, there are Hispanic people, and there are black people in those marches. So what do you mean they're excluding people? No, they have a focus, okay? And if you had a brain in your goddamn head, you would realize that the Black Lives Matter people have also supported bad families that have had their loved ones killed illegally by police. And I'm talking about white families have asked them to come in, and they have shown up. So you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
come back to this. If you watched it live on Fox News, you know about the words by the Dallas police chief that many are calling wise, necessary, strong leadership. And he spoke about the truth officers are living with. They do not feel supported, and whether that's part of a bigger issue nationwide.
Okay, I'm not even going to play that portion with the Dallas police chief. Just so that you know, my wife went to school with that prick. He was a prick when he was in school. He was a prick when he came up through the police ranks. And to be honest with you, he's trying to use that to cry, woe is me and woe is my poor police department because we don't feel loved. You know something? They might not feel loved, but they're definitely not hated, okay? And I can tell you that for a fact.
Part of a bigger issue nationwide.
We don't feel much support most days. Let's not make today most days.
You did it.
Sorry about that. Something jumped in. Let me finish playing the rest of it.
We are heartbroken. There are no words to describe the atrocity that occurred to our city. All I know is that this must stop. This divisiveness between our police and our citizens. We don't feel much support most days. Let's not make today most days. Please, we need your support to be able to protect you from men like these.
He keeps saying these. It's one guy. I don't need any protection from Johnson, because he's out there killing cops. What I need protection from are cops that are out there killing people like me. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's a big problem here in Dallas. I'm not saying that. But across the who's who and what's what, and they need to get these white supremacist groups out of the police department, and they need to get the guys that are on the edge psychologically, they need to get them removed as well. And that's my particular take on this. But anyway, let him finish.
Carried out this tragic event. Police officers are guardians of this great democracy, the freedom to protest, the freedom of speech, and the freedom for expression. All freedoms we fight for with our lives. It's what makes us who we are as Americans. Please pray for our strength through this trying time.
Full disclosure, my family is in Dallas. Many people in the black community whom I know are very proud of what that man just had to say.
Okay, and my wife's family is out of Dallas, and she went to school with that prick. And other than you and your color-struck family, there's not a whole lot of people that have a whole lot of really nice things to say about that guy, just in a matter of disclosure.
Let's bring in Pat Brosnan, a former NYPD robbery detective. You have seen a lot on the
Okay, and here we go with New York prick-ass cops.
streets, and I can tell you on the streets of certain cities, Philly, the Metro DC, here in New York City, they are now traveling in pairs, and I'm reading that there will be no more solo posts. What does this mean for the public?
It means that the public is going to be paying more money because they're going to want to keep the police forces adequately staffed and out on the streets. So if instead of one police officer, now there's going to be two, that means the police budgets are going to have to go up.
Well, it means a couple things, Harris. First of all, I take my hat off to Chief Brown. That was a heartfelt and spot-on statement by him. And the fact is, the police need support. The police need support across America. And it starts with ending the narrative that's been going on at the top, from Obama to Jesse Jackson to the Minnesota governor, where they're dehumanizing the police. The police are being declawed, Harris.
You see, I love it. They're dehumanizing the police. That is such a load of bullshit. They're being declawed. I think they all still have guns and badges. What this guy's talking about is all that military equipment that the Obama administration has stopped providing them with. So that's what he means when he says declawed. But when they were sworn in, given a gun and a badge. Nobody's taking the badge away from them, and they damn sure haven't taken the gun away from them, and they still walk around with AR-15s that are fully automated. So, you know, just more bullshit. Between him and Mark Furman, these guys, they have it down pat.
And that's part of the reason that there's now double patrols, because on the one hand, you declaw and dehumanize the police through rhetoric and words that have very severe, sometimes deadly consequences. And on the other side of the equation, you embolden and empower the bad guy. So Chief Brown, the support he's referencing is not just the community support, it's the support from the individuals who pass judgment and who pass judgment astonishingly on shootings within minutes of the shooting, governors and mayors.
All right, obviously he's talking about that Minnesota shooting. And the video don't lie, and there's an eyewitness right there. And when that lying ass cop tried to put out a narrative, and she was live streaming, and she basically pushed back on his narrative, he shut his mouth. So,
and top officials, including Obama, basically said not a justified shooting. It's astonishing, it's sickening, and it has declawed and dehumanized the police and empowered the bad guys. It's got to stop. And by the way, no lessons were learned with the assassination of P.O. Lou and P.O. Ramos back in December 20th of 14, when de Blasio was up to blood in his armpits with his involvement with chanting and perpetuating and tacit approval of kill the pigs, pigs in blankets, what do we want, dead cops. Those words have deadly consequences. Yeah. Wake up, people. This is why the bad guys feel empowered to the extent that they can open fire and murder 5 honorable officers in Texas, wound 7 more, and don't forget the 2 civilians. There's 14 victims.
There wasn't 2 civilians, there was 1. But getting back to his pigs in a blanket fry like bacon comment, where exactly did that comment come from? It came from a march that the Black Lives Matter chapter in Minneapolis did, okay? There have been no cops killed in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, but there damn sure has been a bad shooting that occurred within the past couple of days by one of those pigs that should be put in a blanket and fried like bacon.
It's a horror show. It's terrible.
I want to let David Webb jump in here real quickly, and then we'll come back to some of the facts of the investigation that I want to ask you about that are coming to light. David?
Pat, in such a terrible moment, you brought up Rafael Ramos and Wen Jianlu. NYPD went on the same, 2-person patrol cars. Dallas, other cities, as Harris mentioned, doing this. But that also means that the rest of the community is now stressed. The protection of the community. Address that from the police officer's point of view. How do you protect the community when you actually halve your resources potentially?
By giving the fucking cops overtime, idiot.
Precisely, David. You put it perfect. And that's the unknown and unregistered ancillary loss on the side of Bill Bratton in New York.
Yeah, right. I thought of it the moment they said 2 parties, but these 2 brain surgeons haven't figured it out yet that all it means is there's going to be a lot of overtime by the police officers in New York, Philadelphia, etc.
To the extent when he puts out the double patrols because of this empowerment of the bad guy and diminishment of the good guy, what happens is the good people, the vast majority of New Yorkers, now have diminished police response because the police are turning their attention to other matters when in fact they're not serving and protecting to the extent that they normally do on mundane issues. So it basically dilutes and minimizes the protection that all the citizens of New York should be afforded. So there's a lot of cost-benefit analysis on this, apart from the horrible savagery of 5 dead, 9 wounded, 7 of which were law enforcement, and it comes down to words have consequences. I can't say it enough. Listen, shut your pie hole. If you got nothing good to say, don't badmouth the police, and certainly don't jump to judgment on a case that took Governor Huckabee. Sorry, I'm a little bit...
Okay, he needed to take his own advice, and since he had nothing good to say, he needed to shut his pie hole, but no, couldn't shut his pie hole, so what does he do? He opens up his mouth and mentions the wrong goddamn name, and now he looks like a fucking fool.
On fire over this, but it took him years of parsing critically every page on a death penalty case before he determined that there was justification to put someone to death. Let's at least give similar examination, analysis, and assessment of the facts before we make statements that corrupt and toxically alter the minds of individuals who are deranged.
So Pat,
it's a
I want to
bad
step
thing.
in.
All right, so I'm getting so tired of these guys. I'm telling you, it's so hard to watch Fox, because these guys are so biased and racist. It's just ridiculous. But I was told a long time ago, you need to know exactly what your enemies are thinking so that you can be better prepared. And that's the only reason why I did this video using Fox. I want you to pay special attention to this prick because, all of a sudden now he's going to throw Black Lives Matter in with the Black Panthers. And I'm going to be honest with you. This was one guy that did this. And he may have been planning to do something like this for a long time, but he had to bring this together quickly because the fact that they were going to have this type of a rally was only out there for approximately 27 hours. So, yeah, he might have been planning to do something like this, but the specific planning for this could have only been done within 27 hours. So as far as I'm concerned, this guy threw this plan together, basically checked out his spot and executed his quote-unquote plan with military precision.
Step in before we have to let
Sorry.
you go with a couple things that are coming out. No, I understand. A
I'm
lot
on
of
a roll.
emotion. So we're learning that the suspect that they killed was a U.S. Army reservist, and we're learning that this could not have been planned in a short time. According to some experts, they feel like this had a lot of big planning. And possibly more people. We know they have suspects, others in custody. We don't know what the connection is with this one guy. He said he acted alone. I want to get into your mind as an officer now about the investigation. Your thought.
Okay. If you have an AR-15, one or two, if you have some high-capacity magazines, and I'm talking about the ones that hold like 100 rounds, and you have a couple of those, not to mention your 60s, 40s, and 30s. Okay, 200 round magazines, and honestly, it's going to weigh a lot. And then you get, like I said, maybe 10 60 rounders. Okay, so that's 800 rounds. Two of your magazines, you can get off 100 rounds without having to reload. Except every 100 times. And then with your 60s, you're just firing and shooting. And he wasn't, firing like a machine gun. He was picking out his targets and he was hitting his targets. So that's one. A lot of guys, and I'm going to include white guys out there. There's a ton of white guys out there that have a ton of weapons and ammunition and magazines and everything else that goes with it, including body armor, etc. Okay, this is Texas. These guys have it. I go to gun shows all the time, and they are doing a brisk business at these gun shows. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, okay, if you're going to do something and you get the wind that, I guess an event's going to occur, it doesn't take you 27 hours to drive into an area, check it out, pick out your spot, and be ready. So for them to say it took a ton of planning, that's a bunch of bullshit. That something like that can be put together very, very quickly. And I'm talking about if you really were pressed, you could put something like that together by yourself in less than 24 hours.
Absolutely. My immediate questions are why, and then the second question is why. So why we can probably address in terms of the framework of the investigation based on preliminary inquiries that he had some Black Power and Black Lives Matter.
Bullshit. See, and that's what he had some Black Power and Black Lives Matter. This guy basically has got to be one of those guys from the 60s, 70s, because we haven't heard or really utilized the term Black Power for a long time. So he's trying to equate the two, Black Lives Matter and the Black Power movement, to try to tie in the millennials with the younger people of today. I'm surprised he hasn't mentioned the black Muslims.
Elections to the extent that he wanted to hurt officers, white officers specifically, but what he neglected to note is that there's no color. The police are colorblind, they're blue, so he went after blue, let's be clear. But to your point, this appears to be a very strategically aligned, mathematically efficient firearms assault on multiple individuals, multiple targets. There was a sense of a triangulation. I don't buy that there were not others involved from the facts that I have.
See, the thing is, you don't have the facts, and later on in this particular clip, you're going to admit you don't have the facts. So what you just put out there is bullshit.
So my feeling, and also the fact that the protest was just planned 27 hours prior to the first bullet coming out of that rifle. So my belief is that it would be unusual that that level of disciplined planning and programming for that type of assault, effective assault and efficient assault, could have occurred in such a short time frame. But
yeah, but he's former military. He's got training.
I can't say for certain because a lot of facts are not known. There's
Oh,
a lot of
absolutely,
murkiness,
Pat.
you know.
And that's where he just backed away from his initial statement, indicating that he can't say for sure because he doesn't have the facts. See, this is the kind of bullshit that Fox puts out there. They throw out, quote unquote, a theory, but then they back away from the theory by saying, but since I don't have all the facts, I can't say for sure. Well, their initial premise is already out there, and most people are going to remember that initial premise, and they're not going to remember the fact that the guy is saying, but I don't have all the facts, so I can't say for sure. That part gets lost in the translation. That's enough. You know, I'm so tired of Fox. I can't do any more with these guys.